Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am once again diving into the world of Fallout. Now, if you've ever played the game, there are these things called Pip-Boys, and throughout the wasteland in most of the games, there are holotapes, which you can play in these, and usually it's audio files, but there are a few video games that you can play within a video game, very meta. And I thought it would be fun to make something small this week and Fallout related because it's been a bit since I made the last one. So I wanted to continue my fan-made story and also build something that didn't take up a lot of space in the man cave. So today I am going to make all of the games from Fallout 76 plus one custom one. Let's get to building. So this is a Pip-Boy 2000 Mark VI from Fallout 76. It was a kit that I bought about 5 years ago and did an assembly / weathering video on the channel. You can definitely go back and watch it if you would like after you finish this one. With this kit came a holotape that fits nicely into the cartridge holder. I'm going to trace the outside perimeter of this piece to fit within the Pip-Boy. I don't think the holotape is as narrow as the prop makes it, but I'm going to adjust my build so that my holotapes fit in the Pip-Boy. I draw in the rest of the shapes with a few drafting stencils and then go over all of it with a Sharpie to clean the pattern up. This pattern, along with the game labels, will be included for free in the description below the video if you want to make these, or just print out the labels to put on your model if you have one yourself. I also am going to pepper in some more of my fan story that I've been working on for the past 6 or 7 builds now. I think I'll maybe make a playlist so that if you want to go back and watch the whole series, you can. When we last left our cosplay making vault dwellers, they were trapped inside of a storage area deep inside the green walls of Diamond City. The town doc, Dr. Crocker, was discovered to be a big part in the Enclave spy ring that the 2 vault dwellers were trying to uncover. Crocker betrayed his partner Dr. Sun, and after being captured, was about to reveal the truth behind the Enclave treachery when the one-legged assassin took out Crocker with a single shot, released a horde of feral ghouls, and trapped our now trio inside a storage cage within the cache of cosplays and weapons. With the flashlight battery flickering on and off for some reason and the fence giving way, we are officially caught up with our story from the last episode. And just like that, the light dies and our heroes are in the dark, scrambling for dear life. So now I'm just going to trace the parts onto various thicknesses of foam, which will be labeled in the final version of this template. I use 10mm, 8mm, and 2mm EVA foam. I trace the perimeter of the pattern, then cut away pieces of it to do the inner markings. Since I'm going to only put labels on one side of the game, the back side of my pattern will get the ridges. I went ahead and drew them out for you, but I'm probably going to wing it when I burn the stuff in later because I don't want to cut up the pattern that much that I then share with you. It's hard to tape bits back together. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness of their inevitable doom, the trio noticed a faint green glow. Amongst the dozen or so feral ghouls is a glowing one. These are ghouls that have so much radiation that they actually emit a little bit of light from their bodies. It was just enough glow for the 3 trapped humans to see within the cache of costumes after costumes. There were weapons on the walls. Crocker did say that that dead body was his gun mule after all. As the 2 vault dwellers held the fence up from falling, Dr. Sun sprinted over to the gun rack and grabbed the first firearm he could find, which was a small alien blaster. This is not a common weapon in the wasteland, but man does it pack a punch, especially against ghouls. Sun took aim and killed about 8 of the ghouls that were the furthest away from the vault dwellers. Once downed, he got right up on the fence line in between the duo and point blank splattered ghoul guts all over the walls. They were all downed as the 3 took a deep breath of relief. They began to finally get a good look around. With my pattern all traced out, I begin cutting out each piece with a sharp hobby knife, doing my best to keep the blade perpendicular to the table at a 90-degree angle. Obviously, you don't have to make this many, but it does give one the opportunity to really practice cutting foam without a lot of waste or risk. I actually made all 8 of these from the offcuts of another project. Back to our story, the 3 begin taking inventory of their surroundings, and the 2 vault much props dwellers quickly realized that only a dozen or so of these costumes in the room were actually made by them. This would have to mean that there were other vaults in the wasteland being duped into replica gear like they were. After countless hours of wandering around, the 3 stumbled upon one box in the entire storage area that was locked. Something good had to be inside this thing. Just think, a top secret facility within a switch-locked set of gates must mean that whatever the contents inside has to be of great importance. Assembly time is relatively simple. To get the rounded over metal disc, I cut the circle out, beveled the edges, and then glued it back into place. I burn in bits with my wood burner using various tips. I even modified a flat iron tip by sanding away part of the edges to shape it like the opposite thing of the circle. And I scored lines on the panel to warm up with my heat gun and open the lines. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well ventilated area while sanding or burning foam. You don't want to breathe in this dust or fumes. Once those small details were in, I superglued the top slide bar and the yellow tab on the top. Then I just repeated the entire process 7 more times. Easy peasy, mutt fruit squeezy. Trying to think about where the key could possibly be, a flashback in the minds of one of our trapped trio hits. Crocker was searching for something just before he entered the Green Wall facility. He was rummaging around for a few minutes in the dirt. What if he was looking for a key? This covert group was genius in that they dead dropped an inconspicuous key in the middle of baseball field dirt, and the next agent would just have to find it before entry. To a random person, it would just seem like another useless piece of wasteland trash. The vault dweller ran to the downed Crocker, still tied up outside the cage, and rummaged through his pockets. A single piece of cold metal was plucked from his person to reveal a small key. The kind that would open a small box. Quicker than could be said out loud, they rushed to the box, twisted the lock mechanism, and a latch released inside the coffer. What could it possibly be? To simulate a screw, I just superglued a real one. Sometimes it just makes more sense to use that random screw you pulled off a water gun 6 years ago and save yourself some time and sanity. I poke a hole and screw it in with a little superglue to fix it in permanent place. Now back to the box, because I know you really need to know this. Looking inside, a number of possibilities rushed through their minds. Would it be an answer, or would it only spark more endless trails to lead them down? They dumped the contents onto the floor and gazed in wonder at why this was in a locked box. There was a brand new Pip-Boy, which, given that's a good find, 9 holotapes in a single sheet of paper with very hard to read text. Man, Crocker really did hold that stereotype of doctors having the worst handwriting. Luckily for the vault dwellers, Son was also a doctor. Fingers crossed he could translate his former partner's shorthand. I pushed wire into the foam, made it into a little hook, and then cover all 8 of my foam holotapes with 2 coats of black Plasti-Dip. To begin the paint process, I looked at my original holotape that came with my Pip-Boy and did my best to color match the faded yellow with some mixes of acrylic paint. I put down 2 layers to get full coverage, knowing that I didn't need to because it was going to get dirty, and that's my typical process of overdoing. As Dr. Sun looked at the Deathclaw scratch on the piece of paper, he made out basically what the paper was saying. It was a list of games, followed by the word level and a number, then 2 other sets of numbers that followed. After decoding the note, a couple of those numbers seemed familiar. They were map coordinates to Good Neighbor and Far Harbor. They had found drop-off points to the Enclave spies for their gear. The part that didn't make sense though was the game listed, so they figured why not just pop the game into the Pip-Boy. First on the list was the game Red Menace, followed by the level number 2. Maybe playing the game to that level could give them an answer. So Pip-Boy was put on, the game was inserted, and so began our protagonist journey of dodging bombs and rolling bits, trying to make the way to the top to save the woman. Then I attached my label, which I printed out on sticky paper. I had to do some serious modifications to the in-game assets to get these to fit my holotape. There is an extra bit of curved area that will probably need to get trimmed off if you're going to do this. I will include all of my labels on the template in case you want to grab them for yourself. As our vault dwellers gained their way to the end of level 2, the game glitched for about 5 seconds. Someone had coded over a small portion of the game to trigger a message at the level 2 completion. On the screen flashed the words, "Vault, much props, costume 32. What? Why was their vault mentioned in this game? Shuffling through the rest of the games on the floor, they saw it. On the cover of the holotape, just like the other 8 games, was the label Vault Much Props. Red Menace was quickly aborted from the holder on the Pip-Boy and Vault Much Props was inserted. It fired up but did not have a load screen like the other games, just a long column of numbers, 128 to be exact. They scrolled down quickly to number 32 and selected the file. For the metal bits on the holotape, I'm going to use some silver rub and buff. To cover most of the circles, I use my fingertip, then switch over to a cotton swab to get the screw and get close to the edge on the big circle. Back on the Pip-Boy, number 32 is selected. A long series of processing codes appear on the screen, then an image pops up with text. An image of a ghoul dressed in a red frock coat and a tricorn hat. It was Hancock, the mayor from Good Neighbor. This was not a game. This was a dossier of the Vault Dwellers builds. It was like the build binder in digital form, but the enemy's version. Now they could match up what costumes were where and figure out, hopefully, who was at the center of this labyrinth of espionage. The 3 packed up the games and the Pip-Boy into their backpack and made their way out of the green wall to Sun's house for planning and sleep. The last step of this process is Of course, this is way too clean. Watering down some brown and black acrylic paint, I slathered on washes to give my Holotape games the collection of decades worth of grime and dirt that I so much want. While the paint was still wet, I sprinkled in a little bit of scenic weathering pigments into the recesses just to give it some grit. And with that, my build is done. Now let's wrap up the story. After so much needed rest at Sun's house, the three deciphered the remaining parts on the list of paper and began making a plan to go to the next costume drop. They go back to the green wall, grab the costume that they need, and head out of Diamond City. The Vault Dwellers really hit a home run with this discovery in Diamond City. Now with the enemy's playbook in hand, or a holotape in this case, the trio are ready to beat the Enclave at their own game. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Yes, that is all 9 of them, 8 from the game and 1 that is custom. It was definitely a little bit more complicated than I expected it to be, but I eventually got it done and knocked out. And I've got cool little cartridges that I can actually fit within here. I don't know why I decided that they needed to fit in this Pip-Boy, but if I wanted to bring these to a con and add that to my cosplay performance, I guess you could say, this would be a fun little added bonus to it. Or maybe I go to cons and just hand these out. They don't take very long to do, and I think they look pretty cool. Maybe you will try and make some of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to pull something from your favorite video game, even though a lot of people may not build it, and just have fun getting into it and nerding out over random items. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some,
yay!
And inevitably, they're gonna ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these, tell them, much props. I actually kind of like the little grooves, the sides without the actual pictures. Guess it's time to catch up on my Fallout video games. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.